Do you find it's getting harder to get out of bed in the morning? Do you hit the snooze button at least 10 times? And when your feet finally hit the floor, all you can think about is when you can go back to bed? Maybe you're surviving on a constant infusion of sugar and caffeine just to get through the day. And by lunchtime, you're too tired to make a healthy salad. So you grab a bag of chips and a soda instead. Sound familiar? That was me too. And it turns out all these symptoms were due to low cortisol. Stay tuned because today I'm breaking down not only the signs of low cortisol, but what causes it. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Dr. Renee, and since I am an overachiever, I not only have one, but I have two medical board certifications. And I've had the honor of working with thousands of women, both in person and in the online space for over 20 years now. So what is it that I do? I help women balance the hormones naturally and rewire the brain for better health. But enough about me. Let's dive into what we're here for today, to learn all about low cortisol. Did you know that many women struggling with things like chronic stress, prolonged dieting, or frequent sleepless nights could be dealing with low cortisol, and many don't even know it? In fact, it's estimated that a significant number of people dealing with chronic fatigue may have some form of adrenal dysfunction. And yet, so many of these cases go undiagnosed, leaving women feeling constantly tired, unmotivated, and wondering why they can't keep up with their daily to-do lists. They start to think that it's all in their head since they've been told by their doctor that their labs are normal. And they start to think that this is how they're going to have to feel for the rest of their life. But the truth is, there is a reason behind all of this: cortisol. Cortisol is known as our stress hormone because it's released by the adrenal glands in response to stress. Now, in short bursts, cortisol is actually beneficial. It helps increase your energy, improves your focus, and enhances your body's ability to handle stressful situations. It's also important for regulating your blood sugar, reducing inflammation, and even supporting your immune system. When you're running from a stressful situation like a tiger chasing you, you need energy to go to your muscles, not to your ovaries or your gut, and you can't get an infection since you need to stay healthy to outrun the tiger. However, the problem arises when we're chronically stressed, causing cortisol to be released constantly. Over time, this can lead to issues like fatigue, weight gain, anxiety, and even a weakened immune system. So cortisol follows a natural diurnal rhythm, meaning it's highest in the morning to help you wake up and get you out of bed, and it gradually decreases throughout the day. But with chronic stress, this pattern can get disrupted, leading to imbalances where cortisol can be too high, too low in the morning and high at night, and eventually too low all day. Lately, everyone is talking about cortisol on social media, especially things like cortisol face, which is this facial puffiness or swelling linked to high cortisol levels. Now, you'll see pictures of women with puffy faces and overweight transform into lean, mean, stress-busting machines. And unfortunately, I find that most are trying to sell you something like a supplement. I can tell you that it takes much more than a drink or a little pill to address this. I really wish it were that easy. And to be honest, most of the women I see are suffering from erratic cortisol levels or low cortisol because they ignored the early signs of high cortisol. So even though many in the online space are trying to convince you that a magic pill or a drink will take away all of your problems, what they are doing is raising awareness about this big problem. What these discussions highlight is how stress can lead to cortisol issues, starting with high levels and eventually leading to low cortisol, leaving you exhausted and struggling with everyday tasks. So before we dive into why your cortisol might be low, let's talk about why I'm not focusing on high cortisol levels in this video. Here's the thing: when your cortisol is elevated all day long, many people don't actually see that as a problem. Why? Because high cortisol can make you feel more energetic, more alert, and more able to power through your busy days. The only issue people might notice is increased anxiety, but who doesn't complain of some form of anxiety nowadays? It's only when cortisol levels start falling, either during certain parts of the day or throughout the whole day, that we really start to notice the impact. So this is when I see so many women struggling with fatigue, brain fog, and feeling utterly drained, and they're wondering what's going on. So let's talk about some of the most common reasons why cortisol levels might drop too low. Number 1, chronic stress leading to something called HPA axis dysfunction. Prolonged stress is one of the biggest culprits. When you're dealing with constant stress, whether that's from work, family, or other life pressures, your body is in a state of fight or flight for way too long. Over time, this chronic stress can disrupt the communication between your brain and your adrenal glands, which is known as HPA axis dysfunction. This breakdown in communication means that your body can start to struggle with producing enough cortisol, leaving you feeling exhausted instead of energized. Next up, let's talk about over-dieting or restrictive eating. You know those super restrictive diets that leave you feeling deprived? Now, you know how I feel about diets. I hate them. And this is one of the reasons why. When you're not eating enough, especially if you're cutting out entire food groups or drastically lowering your calorie intake, it puts a huge strain on your body. Your adrenal glands need proper nourishment to produce cortisol. Without enough nutrients, cortisol levels can drop, leading to that constant sense of fatigue and sluggishness. Not only that, your body thinks you're trying to kill yourself by starvation. So this prolonged dieting is a huge stressor to the body. Believe me, as a former bodybuilder, I know a thing or two about diets and their effects on your cortisol. Yeah, look at this picture. I may have thought I looked great, but I felt like crap. My hormones were a mess. When your body switches into survival mode due to overly restrictive diets, your cortisol levels shoot up and remain high until the threat is gone. But when food never arrives in adequate quantities, your body stays on high alert, pumping out cortisol until the time comes when your body just gives up and cortisol levels drop. And speaking of dieting, I know just how exhausting it can be. That constant cycle of restricting, then feeling deprived, then giving into your cravings, only to end with the feeling of the never-ending doom and gloom of shame and guilt from overindulging. It's enough to wear anyone down. And that's why I created my brand new program, Ditch the Diet, and I'm so excited to share it with you. These strategies I teach, I use every single day to stay balanced, nourished, and free from the dieting roller coaster. And guess what? Now is the perfect time to jump in. With the holidays right around the corner, Ditch the Diet will give you the tools you need to navigate all the delicious holiday foods without feeling guilty or gaining 10 pounds. Imagine starting January feeling great about yourself, not like you need to dive into another crash diet just to make up for your holiday indulgences. If you're ready to break free from restrictive eating and find real food freedom, join me in Ditch the Diet starting soon. The doors are now open and I cannot wait to see you on the inside. Now back to reason number 3 as to why you might have low cortisol. Poor sleep patterns. Sleep is your body's time to recover and reset, including your cortisol levels. If you're not getting enough quality sleep, or if you're sleeping at odd hours, your body struggles to maintain its normal cortisol rhythm. This is a big problem for night shift workers. Ideally, cortisol should be highest in the morning to wake you up and get you out of bed and slowly taper off throughout the day. But when your sleep is off, cortisol production becomes dysregulated, leading to low levels when you need it most. Emotional or physical burnout. Now, we often hear about burnout, but it's more than just a buzzword. And we often associate it with work-related stress. But burnout can occur for so many reasons, whether it's physical burnout from pushing yourself too hard at the gym, and I'm talking to you, cardio queens, or emotional burnout from giving too much of yourself to others and leaving no time for yourself. Your body can reach a point where it can no longer keep up with the demand of cortisol. This is especially common in women who have spent years juggling responsibilities like kids, aging parents, and a demanding career without taking time for themselves. Over time, your body just can't keep up and cortisol levels drop, leaving you feeling depleted. And I just want to take a quick second to thank all of you smart, savvy women out there who have already subscribed to this channel because you're tired of feeling like crap and you want to feel better. This is the place to be to learn more about why you don't feel well and what you can do about it. Last week I was saying how we just crossed the 1K mark and now we're so close to 1,200 subscribers. And I am so thankful for each and every one of you. And if you're not feeling quite like yourself and you don't know what's going on, but you have not subscribed yet, I'm not sure what you're waiting for. You're going to miss out on some really eye-opening content that I have coming out. So if you want to stay in the know, smash that subscribe button and hit that little bell icon so you can stay up to date. And if you've enjoyed this video so far, please give it a little love by hitting the thumbs up. That shows me that you enjoy this type of content, so I'll make more of it for you in the future. Okay, on to the final reason why you might have low cortisol levels. Chronic illnesses or prolonged exposure to toxins. Any prolonged physical insult to your body can impact cortisol levels. Chronic illnesses like autoimmune conditions or long-term infections can exhaust your adrenal glands. And don't forget about long-term exposure to environmental toxins, things like chemicals in our food, water, and even the air we breathe. Over time, these stressors wear down your body's ability to produce cortisol, contributing to those low energy levels. So now that we know what can cause low cortisol, let's dive into some of the most common symptoms. And if any of these sound familiar to you, you might be dealing with low cortisol levels. Exhaustion. Now, this isn't just the I had a rough night's sleep kind of tired. This is the deep, bone-weary fatigue that lingers no matter how much rest you get. Imagine feeling like you're dragging yourself through the day, barely able to keep your eyes open, and desperately needing a nap by 3 p.m. So you might find that your morning cup of coffee can't seem to cut through that fog anymore, and you start struggling to keep up with your job and your kids. Low blood pressure or dizziness when standing. Now, low cortisol can also mean low blood pressure, which can make you feel lightheaded or dizzy when you stand up too quickly. For example, if you're a busy mom running errands and you suddenly stand up after bending down to pick up your groceries, you might feel like your world is spinning for a few seconds. Now, this could be due to other reasons like dehydration, but you might want to consider the possibility of low cortisol. And this can be especially scary if it happens often, making you worry that something more serious might be going on. Craving salt or sugary foods. Have you ever found yourself reaching for the chips or the extra piece of chocolate without even thinking about it? This isn't just lack of willpower. It can be your body's way of trying to compensate for low cortisol levels. Cortisol helps regulate sodium balance. So when your levels are low, you might crave salty foods. And when your energy is dragging, sugary treats can feel like a quick fix to get you through that afternoon slump. Many of the women I work with have a stash of snacks at their desk and find themselves grabbing a handful of pretzels or a candy bar multiple times a day. Is this you too? And if this already sounds like your symptoms to a T, constantly feeling drained, struggling with low energy, and not sure how to feel better, I'd love to help you. Schedule a strategy call with me using the link in the description below. We'll talk about your symptoms, I can offer some guidance, and we can see if working together more closely is a fit for both of us. Okay, let's keep talking about how you might be feeling with low cortisol levels. Brain fog and poor concentration. Now, low cortisol can make it feel like your brain is wrapped in a blanket. You might struggle to focus on tasks at work, forget what you were about to say, or feel like your mind just isn't as sharp as it used to be. I was just talking to a client yesterday who is in her 30s, and she told me that she noticed that she's starting to forget simple things like where she put her car keys. And she's also starting to struggle to follow along in meetings. This is making her feel like she's constantly off her game. Feeling anxious, irritable, or depressed. Now, cortisol isn't just about energy. It plays a role in regulating your mood too. When levels are low, it can make you feel more anxious or down than usual. You might find yourself snapping at your kids or your partner over the smallest little things, or feeling overwhelmed by tasks that you used to handle pretty easily. I often work with women who used to love going out with their friends, but now she feels too anxious or drained to even enjoy social events. Lack of motivation and inability to handle stress. When cortisol levels are balanced, it helps you tackle stress. But when cortisol's low, even the smallest challenges can feel like mountains. It's like your internal get up and go has gotten up and left. I find that many of my clients, especially those in their 40s and 50s, feel like projects at work that used to excite them now just feel like a burden. And even those simple chores around the house start to feel overwhelming. Difficulty waking up in the morning. Low cortisol levels can make mornings feel nearly impossible. If cortisol isn't peaking as it should in the morning, you'll feel groggy even after a full night's sleep. Picture yourself hitting that snooze button again and again, dragging yourself out of bed, and then counting down the hours until you can crawl back in. This was me when I was struggling with my cortisol. I would literally lay in bed and go through my day trying to figure out when I could fit a nap in. Lowered immune response. Cortisol helps regulate the immune system, so when levels are low, you might find yourself catching every cold or flu that's going around. This can be especially frustrating if you're like many of the women I work with who are trying to juggle work and family, and you feel like you're constantly getting sick. It's that feeling of recovering from one bug only to come down with another just a few weeks later, making it really hard to stay on top of everything. So if you're nodding your head along to any of these symptoms, stay tuned, because next week I'm going to share some practical strategies and, of course, key supplements you can use to boost your cortisol levels and start feeling like yourself again. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to stick around a bit, check out this video that YouTube has picked just for you. And with that, we'll see you right back here next week. Ciao.